Great to be here. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Angela Lemonager. I'm the program specialist for the English Learner Services Department. I do mainly focus for secondary, but I'm here to support everyone.
The next slide there, please. There's our email addresses. If you ever need to contact us or email us for any reason, we're here for you. So thank you again for being here. Our intentions for today to get started is we're going to have the attendees, you all, be able to explain the different curriculums in secondary and elementary. So what your students are learning or your children are learning in the secondary school and the elementary school. So you'll be able to understand a little bit more of that. Our second intention is attendees, you all will be able to formulate questions for your children's teachers, because this week, if you're an elementary child, you have conferences on Thursday and Friday. So we hope to give you some ideas and give you some confidence and advocate for you to have that confidence to talk to your child's teacher and ask those questions that need to be asked. And then our third intention, we'll talk a little bit about the Lpac, which is the language test that your students take every year. If you're new to this district, you may have already taken it, but it happens in February through March, or February, excuse me, through July. But we will have a whole nother session on Lpac in January. So if you're interested in learning more about that test, please look out for that email from Mr. Soto. Next slide, please. So here's the slide here. And this is something that we felt was relevant for today's mission and today's lesson today is families play. I'll read it aloud and Paul will kindly interpret it. Thank you. Families play a critical role in the educational success of their child. Research clearly indicates that when schools, families, and community groups work together to support learning, children tend to have a more positive attitude towards school, to do better in school, and stay in school longer. So just to put it out there, just to ground us in our work today, what we're going to talk a lot about the school family connection and partnership. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please.
To get us started, we thought it would be fun to just chat for a little bit. And since I think we all probably love food, we thought it would be a nice idea to talk about our dream meal. If you could have a dream meal, that is anything that you could have that you've ever wished for or that you love the best, what would it be? What would your dream meal be? So think for a second. And then if you would like, you can type it in chat, or you can come off of mute and you can share it by talking. What would your dream meal be if you could have anything? I'll give you an example of how that might sound. If I could have a dream meal, I think it would be Italian pasta with a dessert called tiramisu. That would be my dream meal. What's your dream meal? Think about it and then put it in chat or tell us out loud. Anytime you want to put that in chat, go ahead and type that on in. Ms. Akbari says golden pizza. Ooh, I want to know more about that. Macaroni and cheese with lots of cheese. Chicken biryani. I'll have to look that up too.
That sounds delicious.
Pad Thai Kong. Oh, chicken mole.
Mole
Delicious.
is my favorite.
Yep. Sopa de gallina.
Yes, mole. Tacos de carnitas. Yes.
Tamales el bully.
Oh man,
Oh,
now
you'll
I'm
have
just
to bring that to potluck.
hungry.
I
This is
know.
exciting.
Not fair right before dinner. Barbacoa.
Mhm.
Pupusas.
Papusas.
Spicy. Oh, okay. All right.
Peanut soup.
What's
Yeah.
it called?
Peanut soup.
Oh, peanut soup?
Yes.
It's delicious. Ooh, this chicken biryani, this Indian dish sounds amazing.
So like Afghan meals?
Ooh.
Wow. Well, it's always fun to talk about food. If anybody has any other food that you like, and that's your dream meal, go ahead and share that, and we'll go ahead and move into our learning together. Oh, my Thai food, ceviche. I grow little bitty limes, key limes, and they're perfect for ceviche. Sushi. All right. Well, now that we've got you all hungry right before dinner, that's a perfect time to think about how much fun it is to just talk with our children, right? Just asking them questions, asking them to tell you their favorites or what they like, or what if they could have a dream, what would that dream be? Just like thinking about our dream meal, we think constantly in Twin Rivers about supporting our children so they can have these dreams and wishes for what they want to have in their life. And so today we're going to talk to you about how our teachers and our district supports your children, your English learners' children. And so with that, we're going to be giving you a lot of information. We will do our best to explain things to you, but we really want you to ask questions and make sure that by the end, you're understanding, like Tim said earlier, what questions you can ask your child's teacher, and what is it that your children are learning when it comes to content knowledge about math and science and history, but also about how they're learning English. And with that, Tim's going to take it away, and please put those questions in chat.
All right. So we're going to start with kind of, I know the food makes me a little hungry, but we'll start with what we call integrated ELD. And there's also designated, which are designated by law in California. What you see on your screen now is you see the California English Language Development Standards. And these were created 2013, 2014 for teachers of all content areas from elementary to secondary, high school, to incorporate into their lessons. And so what integrated ELD is, and this is a term you may hear, you may ask your child's teacher about this, like what integrated strategies do you use? And what this is it uses the Common Core standards, which is what the state says the teachers need to teach your children to pass those state tests and reach those goals. And it combines with the English Learner ELD, English Language Development Standards, that they use together. So every lesson should incorporate the California standard that they want us to teach, and the ELD standards that will incorporate and help your child learn English and become better and more proficient in it. They were developed in 2012 to help guide teachers. And they include 4 domains that we'll talk about a little bit more later. And those domains are speaking, listening, writing, and reading. right? And so each of these domains incorporate all those, including grammar, right? And you'll hear some of the English grammar and some English proficiency things as well. You could get a copy of this if you do have a copy. When you get this PowerPoint, which I'm sure Mr. Soto will send to you, you can look at what the standards are and read what they are if you're more curious. It's a pretty big tome, big manual, big book, but they're very intriguing because all teachers should be using them, and some teachers kind of don't. And so it's always good to kind of say, like, what standards are you doing? So all classroom teachers, especially in secondary school, should be incorporating these standards in every lesson in this integrated instruction. And so that's integrated ELD. And that's a term you may hear around, and you can ask your teachers about that. Next slide there.
The other type of ELD that you'll hear is the word designated ELD. And in this, as Tim said, every subject should be integrating ELD standards with whatever content they're teaching, as well as EL strategies. In addition to that, though, the state is required to provide EL students with additional time to practice learning English language. And this in elementary school can look like small group time where the kids are working with their teacher while other kids are working in small groups doing other things, or they might go visit a different teacher in another classroom. In secondary school, this is a separate class that students will have as part of their schedule. It's a specific period that they have. So again, just like integrated, we're looking at speaking, listening, reading, and writing skills. It's a protected time, so all schools are required to provide this time to your students. Go ahead, next slide.
In the elementary schools, and I do want to thank Sandra, Ms. Sanchez, for the comment. So there are some schools in our district that have pre-K or transitional kindergarten all the way through 8th grade. The 7th and 8th grade classes at our K-8 schools are still considered secondary, although some of their offerings are a little bit different than if they went to a middle school. So yes, thank you for that note. So I'll talk about elementary and what the plan is for elementary English language development or lessons in designated time. So like Angela said, in elementary schools, we organize the time for designated ELD differently. Some schools, the teacher that your child has may teach English language development in their own classroom. At some schools, the principal and the teachers may organize so that in, let's say, 4th grade, one of the teachers teaches a group of English language learners who are just beginning English. Another teacher may teach a group of students who are already really on their way to learning or to having full literacy in English. And so another teacher might take that group and work on different projects. And in some sites, the whole school does the designated ELD at the same time. And so it depends, it changes from school to school. Now, if I'm a teacher in a classroom, I may teach English language development by using stories. I might be working with informational text, or which you might have heard of as being called nonfiction text. I might be working with my group. Maybe I notice that they need some some time working on and learning about how words work. Maybe we're learning vocabulary. But other students, I might be working with them in writing. I might have some students listening to a story on in a headphone. And I might also be having students talk to each other during a lesson. And so all of these different ways, like Tim and Angela mentioned, they're working on listening, they're working on speaking, they're working on reading, they might be working on writing. They also might be working on grammar or learning how English works. When I'm teaching my small group of students, I'm going to group them based on what they need to grow their language, what they need to grow their language. They might be in a group with other students who are working on exactly the same thing. They might work with other students in another week who have needs related to theirs. So in elementary, designated ELD looks differently than in secondary. In our K-8 schools, you might have some grouping, and then you might also have an ELD class, like what Angela and Tim will talk about in a second. So one of the things that we know that students, it's important for our English learners, is these, not only these best practices that I talked about with stories and information and working with words, listening to others, talking, but we also know that our students need to work with hands-on items, with tools and working with blocks with sounds on them and things of that nature, depending on their age. We also know that teachers work to grow the knowledge and provide picture clues and also language supports, like to help them get to writing. All of these routines and all of these strategies help your child grow in their English language. Next slide. In Twin Rivers, our elementary teachers use our curriculum called Journeys. Journeys has two programs. They have the English Language Arts program, and they have the English Language Development program. So Journeys, the picture on the left is what your child's book and your teacher, you might see your teacher have, your child's teacher, sorry. That is the child's language arts book. All of our students in our classes for K-6, TK has a program very similar.
Hey, Bev, we had a quick question before we move on. And I
Yes.
appreciate it. There was a question from a parent. If my daughter's at Kima, do they have these groups, these like integrated groups or these other groups? And I feel like we need to like talk about it because Kima's a little different in terms of integrated and designated.
Yes.
And I guess it would depend if you're in secondary. Kima doesn't really have this designated ELD, but they do have the program Edgenuity in secondary that does have supports with language supports, also some sentence frames and some other scaffolding. Do you know much about it in elementary?
Well, I would recommend talking to your child's teacher or Mr. Pope, the principal, or Mr. Ball, one of the vice principals. That would be the best thing to do. Kima's elementary program it has been developing the programs throughout this year. And so they, whether or not they're meeting that meeting with their children via Zoom, I'm not certain. That would be something you would want to talk to the child's teacher. And I will find out what I can as well and send that to Mr. Soto so he can send that to you.
Thank you for that question,
Thank
Olivia.
you. Yes, great
Appreciate
question.
it. Continue on, Bev. Thank you for pausing.
Of course. So as I was saying, our English language arts, that curriculum that you see in the picture on the left, that covers our reading, our writing, our speaking, our listening, our grammar, vocabulary, etc. That program is used for all students. The picture on the right is focused on, it provides instruction for the teacher to give to your child who is an English learner. The picture on the right, that provides the designated ELD, that small group piece. The integrated ELD that Angela and Tim talked about is provided during the day in all of your subject areas. So integrated ELD will be in your English language arts. It would be in science, math, social studies, etc. And so I do want to note, though, that our teachers, while they may use journeys, the pictures that you see, the curriculum, you may also see your child doing something that you don't see attached to journeys. So perhaps they're reading a novel, or perhaps they are using different stories. That is okay. They can still teach using designated and integrated ELD. They can, and they should be. So I just want to note, if you haven't seen journeys, that means that your teacher might be using it a different type of curriculum for a short period of time. And the next slide, I'd like to describe for you one of our curriculum supplements. So this isn't part of our curriculum, but we call it a supplement. And that is Imagine Learning. And for those of you who joined us last, that was, I think, last week or the week before, we talked with Carrie about Imagine Learning. Imagine Learning is a digital or a technology. It's a language accelerator, which means that this program actually will teach English to your children. And it's taught in the form of fun stories and books and songs and videos and games. And the students learn at their own pace. That means they go and they grow at their own speed, right? The program matches what the student can do with the program. And so it's right at the perfect spot. Skills taught include letters and sounds, rhyming, vocabulary, spelling, and even more importantly, reading comprehension. We want students to understand what they're reading. Again, it's at the student's performance level. And you'll notice in the pictures, there are some really fun pictures. They get to match the sound, they get to match what they see in the picture with words. And they also have many languages that are supported. And you'll see in the middle picture, it says Arabic, because this particular content came from part of the program for Arabic speakers. So Imagine Learning is a program that is available to your child as an English learner. And as Heriberto put in the chat, we have an opportunity to provide for family members an Imagine Learning license as well. So Heriberto will put the link in that. You put your information, and then we will send you a link to have your own Imagine Learning license if you're interested in learning English. In the classroom, Imagine Learning can happen. We have another program for learning on the computer, and that's called iReady. And so your child might be using iReady one day, they might be using Imagine Learning.
And
Any questions I missed on that one?
Are teachers using it in the classroom and people can be using it at home?
Yes, students can use it. It's in their Twin Rivers portal, so it's in ClassLink, and they can use it at home and at school. In fact, I encourage that because that gives you more opportunity, more time available. And the more you work with it, the more that you learn English, the more it helps you grow. And there was the next slide has some login information and I currently have this in 4 languages: English, Russian, Hmong, and Spanish. I have requested interpretation in additional languages, but I don't have that yet. I do want you to know that if you're using Imagine Learning on a device that is not provided by Twin Rivers, there is some additional steps for logging in. And so that I will try to get that link for you. And I'm also getting that translated as well. Any questions about designated ELD, about the curriculum, or about Imagine Learning that I can answer, or iReady? I can answer questions about iReady as well. And remember, that information was for elementary schools.
Ms. Weber, there was a message that was sent regarding as far as English learner assessments and how often do they happen, which I imagine it could be something
What a
that could be
great
answered.
question.
That was
Yeah,
sent by one of my parents.
perfect. Language development is assessed by the state of California and by our district once a year, and that's through the Lpac that we'll talk about a little bit later. Teachers will assess language within their lessons and within their units of study, but it's not a formal test that you would see the results of. The only formal test that you'll see results of for language development is the Lpac. Now that answer will be different than what Tim and Angela will give you for secondary. Does that help? Thank you. Yes, I will get that link. I currently only have that in Spanish, Hmong, and English, but I am waiting on the translations in other languages, but I will provide that for you in just a moment. All right.
Okay, so so now we're going to kind of transition. We're kind of in between elementary and secondary in terms of curriculum and placement and things like that. But we wanted to kind of empower you and to be advocates and to kind of answer maybe some questions that you have. A lot of these responses come from a website that is Colored in Colorado, which is a wonderful resource for teachers and educators, but also can be helpful for parents. And so we wanted to kind of address some of these questions for you. And if you have them, just empower you to kind of, I don't know how to just be empowered and do you. So the first question is, you'll get the most out of talking with your teacher. So the first question is, what if I don't speak English? Now, this is a very, very real fear. I know if I was in a different country, the language I didn't speak, I would be constantly nervous and anxious all about it. But some parents are reluctant to talk with teachers if they cannot speak English well. But please don't let a language barrier stop you. Like, what you have to say is way more important than the language you say it in, right? So an answer to that would be find out if someone at the school can interpret for you. And many of our schools do have someone who may be able to interpret for you. Or there may be a teacher, a parent kind of liaison or connection at the school site that you can work with who speaks Spanish or your home language. You can also bring a friend or relative or something to interpret for you. So if you're thinking about not going to the conferences because of the language thing, please don't let that hold you back. Another common fear might be, what if I or my child is an undocumented immigrant? Now, this is something everybody should know. In the United States, public schools are required by law to educate all students, all students. You don't have to answer questions about your immigration status or your child's. You're not required to show any identification at the school, and schools are not supposed to ask you for any. So in terms of your status and things like that, like if you're picking up your child, you might have to show an ID of some sort, just so they can verify, but your status means nothing. Talk with other parents to see what kind of their experiences have been like at the school, if you have some of that connection, but keep that in mind. If you don't speak English, find someone to help you. What you say is more important than whatever language you say it in. And do not worry about the status, because that's by law, every student needs to be educated. And Angela, you want to take those other two?
Of course I do. Another question that we've heard before is, what if I'm not used to meeting with my children's teachers in my country, or if that's not part of a norm in my culture? What we'd really want you to know is that we welcome your contact at all times. In United States, teachers want to hear from parents. We see it as a partnership between home and school, and we really, really encourage you to reach out and talk with us. We do not find it disrespectful. We welcome your comments. You know your child better than we know your child, and so we always encourage parents to reach out and talk to us about anything that's on their minds. Also, for transportation, if you're worried about not being able to come to school events or other events, that's kind of repetitive. So conferences, etc. We can help you find transportation. So don't be afraid to reach out. Contact us by email, contact us by phone. We're here to help you. Okay, the next slide.
Is that me? Sorry, I was putting links in the chat. All right, I put links in the chat for those frequently asked questions. Okay, so what sorts of questions might you want to ask your child's teacher? Remembering though, as Tim said earlier, that this really is about that partnership between home and the school, you and your child's teacher. So teachers welcome the input from parents, from families and their children. Be sure to share information with your teacher, such as what your child likes to do or what they're good at. I know when I taught first grade and second grade, I would always ask my families, tell me what your child likes to do when they're not at home. What is it that your hopes and dreams are for your child? So be sure that you're sharing that in any way possible. And remember that strong partnership, just like that quote said earlier, that strong partnership is going to really increase that growth for your child. Understand that each student is different and learns differently, and that no one knows your child better than you do. You may provide insight to the teacher that will help them work more effectively with your child at school. Sharing information that is essential and for both teachers and parents, really it's that responsibility to make that happen, right? And many teachers have students who use, let me say this again. And teachers may also have students use Imagine Learning or iReady or the Journeys website at home for language practice. So when you're talking to your teacher at the parent conference, if you haven't already, ask questions about this, or ask them, can I tell you about my child? Let me tell you something that really helps us at home. Those are things that teachers really need to know, and that it's beneficial for the whole partnership. And these, again, these ideas and thoughts and questions were put together by Kohler in Colorado that Tim just put the link in. And I'm noticing that a few of you are asking requests to those documents. I'm going to go ahead and quickly change that setting so everybody can open that up. And with that, I'll give it over to Tim.
So in terms of communicating with your child's teacher, you do have important knowledge about your child, as Bev said. Now, it may be like your son learns better when he sits close to the teacher, or maybe there was some sort of death or some incident that happened in the family, and there might be some trouble concentrating or something's going on. And that's knowledge a teacher can use. Letting the teacher know these things will help your child at school and enhance that partnership that Bev was talking about. And if you do notice a big change in your child's behavior or school performance or attitude during the school year, contact the teacher immediately, right? Because the teacher would also, and would like to know the likes and dislikes, if there's special needs or something close to the teacher or not. Just keep them informed as things progress throughout the school year. And then in terms of the rest of the slide, and then I'll have Bev go into a little bit about parent-teacher conferences. Ask your teachers how they communicate with families. Some teachers do it through Aries, some teachers do it through email, some through phone, some through the app. If you have issues with your technology, like your school issued technology, Wi-Fi or Chromebooks or something, let them know and call IT. And there, I put the number there for you and an email if you're having issues with your material. And if there's an extra assignment, or if your child doesn't understand an assignment, or if they need some sort of extra help, like let their teacher know that too, because your teacher will want to support that. So.
All right. And I just want to add that those parent-teacher conferences and report cards, they offer some information about how well your child is doing in school, but you have a chance and you have the right to talk to your child's teacher more often than just report cards and progress reports. Talking to them between those times is really important, because then you can ask, how is my child doing? So between those updates, be sure to reach out to your child's teacher. For example, if your child is having trouble in math, contact the teacher and say, what else can I do to help him or her? When will the next test be? What skill can I help my child practice? This allows you to help your child when a problem is small, and they're being challenged by something before it takes too long, and then the report card has a grade that you were not expecting. So we want to make sure we talk to your child way more often than just report cards or progress reports.
Yeah, keep that open line of communication. Well, so let's transition to secondary. So can we go to the next slide there? So how do elementary and secondary differ? And we can go back to so elementary, we kind of mentioned this already, have this designated time for language instruction within that class. There's integrated language instruction throughout all lessons throughout the day. Your teachers are pulling that in, bringing their supplements and their resources. And there's really no specific class, but students may go to a different teacher during, school-wide learning time or some other time. In secondary schools, now we're talking 7th through 12th grade, all classrooms, whether you're in math, science, English, all classrooms should be doing integrated instructions, but not all teachers. I was a high school teacher before I worked at the district office. Not all high school teachers do use integrated instruction. So this is one of those points you want to hang on to. You really ask your child's teacher how they're integrating their instruction, their integrated ELD. If for the designated time in high school, it's taught in an ELD elective, which many elementary schools don't have. And this is going to be academic ELD, or ELD 1, 2, or 3, which Angela will get into a little later in the presentation. And there's a specific curriculum assigned in that. But before we run into placements and classes, I want to go to the next slide and talk a little bit about the Lpac, which is the statewide test that we mentioned a little earlier. So every year, your child will take this assessment. And in this assessment, there are two versions. There's the initial assessment, and that occurs only once within 30 days of enrollment in any California schools. If any students indicate their first language is not English. And so their home language survey, which many of you have filled out, said English was not their first language. If you were in a different state, but you moved to California or a different place, you still will take that initial Lpac. The summative Lpac is offered every year to students who are identified as English learners until they're reclassified. So, and reclassification is a point where we want all our English learners to be, where they can be reclassified from English learners to reclassified, or RFEP, we call them. It's one of those terms, RFEP, reclassified fluent English proficient, but we won't get too much into that. So the Lpac measures your students' proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing in English, kind of like those ELD standards we talked about earlier. Students are given an overall score in each of these categories: the overall listening score, overall speaking score, writing score, reading score, oral language score. There's a few scores also, which we'll go into in the next session in January. So mark your calendars for the January session, but we're not going to go too much into that. But know that each domain has a score. And so if you haven't, on January 13th, we'll cover more of that. So yeah, I think that's the Lpac overview. They take it every year. Scores range from 1 to 4. In order to be reclassified, students need to get a 4 overall. But we can talk more about that in the next session. But for now, that's just to kind of see where everybody's at, because knowing these scores will help us as we move into the next slide, which is the placement charts for middle school and high school and what classes these students will take.
Tim, will you put the links to those charts in the chat?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So once your student takes the Lpac exam, those scores tell your schools which courses to place your students in. This chart, there are 2 charts here. One is for grade 7, 8, and the other is for 9 through 12. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those, starting on the next slide, please. So when you're in middle school, your student, if they have been living in the United States for less than 5 years, and on that exam, they score a 1 or a 2, then they get placed into ELD 1. The curriculum that we use right now is called ILET, and I will talk a little bit more about that. If your student is living in the United States for less than 5 years, but they score 3 on their exam, then they go into ELD 2, and it is a similar program called ILET. However, there is also an academic ELD class. Both middle school and high school have this class. Students who have been in the US for more than 6 years take this class. They also take English 3D. I'm sorry, the curriculum that they use for academic ELD is called English 3D. And they are also enrolled in ELA. Some schools, sorry, just got distracted. Some schools do not have ELD 1 or 2 because there aren't many students who are scoring at that level. So your school may not have that, but they are still getting ELD support. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so then when we get to high school, it's very similar. If ELD 1A and 1B is only for newcomers, which means students who have been in the United States less than 12 months and score a 1 on that exam. This course counts as 1 year of their English language arts class. And the curriculum is ILET, similar to middle school, but it's a different level. And again, students at this class would be taking ELD 1A, 1B instead of taking mainstream English language arts. Beyond that then, for ELD 1, this is for students who have been in the US for 2 to 5 years and have scored a level 1 on the Lpac. Again, the curriculum is ILET. At this point, the course is taken as an elective, and students are also placed in an English language arts class, either 9, 10, 11, or 12, depending on their grade. Then we have the ELD 2 and 3 course. This is for students who have been here less than 5 years, but have scored a 2 or a 3 on the Lpac. Similar curriculum, they participate in ILET, and again, they are also enrolled in an English language arts class, depending on their grade level. It's important to note that not all high schools are going to have an ELD 3 class. Again, it depends on how many students who are scoring at that level or at the school. And then they also have an academic ELD class in high school. This is for students who have been in the United States for more than 6 years. They are working on the English 3D curriculum. It is a different level than middle school. And again, these students are enrolled in regular English language arts class, grades 9 through 12. Let's go to the next one. So the ILET program students use in the ELD 1 through 3 courses is called ILET. It's a computer-based program that is meant to accelerate reading, writing, listening, and speaking. This program is big with visual aids, audio recordings of not only the stories, but directions as well. For this program, students can use it at home, even if they don't have internet. So whatever stories that they were reading on the computer or whatever work assignments they had, they're able to take it home,
Los
work on
pueden,
it, even though there's no internet. And then when you get
pueden hacer estas actividades en casa sin,
school, it syncs. And so their work will be saved and it will be there when they're back. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is what the curriculum looks like. Go ahead and this is animated, so go ahead and click. So there's a library of ebooks. They have different topics and they're at different reading levels depending on what students are most comfortable with. Going down to that box underneath, students can translate the stories into their home language if they need that kind of support. There's a variety of languages, as you can see. And then in the middle box, students are able to hear and practice letter sounds. They use headphones and microphones provided by the school. Over on the right side and top, there is targeted instruction of grammar. And then down below, this is what vocabulary practice looks like. And it's the vocabulary that they're learning is based on the vocabulary in the stories that they're reading. So they're not just disconnected words that the student doesn't have any real connection to. They're words that are actually in the stories that they're trying to learn. Yes. Next slide. The English 3D curriculum looks like this one. This curriculum relies heavily on close reading and provides structured writing, speaking, and listening support. Go to the next slide. It's as similar as ILET. So students who are taking academic ELD are generally fluent when it comes to speaking, but they often need more support when it comes to reading and writing. So English 3D, students are shown models of writing that they're being asked to do, so they can see what it looks like. They are then, if you look over on the right box, they get structured help to complete the writing tasks. So they fill in words based on correct grammar placement, topic, etc. And they write based on the readings that they're done. And so the topics, as you can see in the middle, are relevant to students. Most of our students these days are interested in video games. And so the readings that are in the books are relevant to their lives. They can understand them and are motivated to read them. Any questions about the secondary curriculum at this point?
There was a question just regarding whether kindergarteners use the ILET program.
No, ILET program is only for grade 7 and up.
Kindergartners would use journeys or an additional curriculum that the teacher and the teacher's team may develop.
Okay. So then if we move on to the next slide.
So coming to, I know time is flying. It's been really fun. We just wanted to kind of bring up some questions that you can talk for your content teachers. Now, we talked a little about the frequently asked questions you had in elementary, And since secondary is a little different and they're very content specific, here are some example questions of what you can ask. Like how are you integrating ELD standards into your lessons, right? Or what strategies are you using to support English learners in your classes? You ask a teacher that, you're going to blow their mind and they'll be like, oh, what? Let me get back to you. If they don't know right away. Some teachers will know right away. You can also ask, what does a typical day look like in your classroom? I know as students get older, they kind of get more distance and they kind of live their lives and they do what they do, right? And it's still, and so they don't really always, how's school, son? It was fine. What'd you do? Stuff. Or who knows what they're going to say, right? So it's like, it's hard to get that, what does that day-to-day look like? And talking to the teacher will help learn that routine, and you'll kind of get that bigger picture of what the teacher's intending through that. And you can also say, what can I do at home to help support my student in your class? And this is sometimes the scary questions as well for some parents, but whatever the teacher can get will be helpful, You can also, do you assign homework? What does it look like? Because not all teachers do assign homework. Some do, some don't. What is your grading policy? How do you grade? What's the weight? It's usually on the syllabus. You'll get that, but it's always good to be reminded. Like, so you're grading him, an effort on what he does, or is it a behavior thing? Because which some teachers do, not always the best, but some teachers do that. And a good question would be, what should my child do if absent from school? Anything you want to add?
Sorry.
Yeah, anything you want to add, Angela? I was going
Yeah.
to you. Because it's the perfect timing.
Nice, perfect. Could read your mind. What we really want you to know is that you have the right to know all of this information, and we encourage you to ask the teachers that your students are working with. They should be supported to the best of teachers' ability, and so please do not hesitate to ask these questions. And then I'm wondering, for families who have asked questions that we haven't listed here, what are some great questions that you feel like the other families here should think about asking their students? So maybe just drop it in the chat or come off mute. What are some good questions that other parents should ask? Yes. Does my child have the credits to graduate from high school? Very important question.
Very good question. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes, you can ask the counselor of that information. You can ask any of your child's teachers that information. Very important to know that all along the way. Are there any others? Okay. Next slide, please.
Whoa. Going for days. There we go.
All right. In addition to working with your teacher, your child's teacher, we have other opportunities to really work in the partnership with the school. And there's two ways. One is called the ELAC, or English Language Advisory Committee. And that English Language Advisory Committee, or ELAC, known as ELAC, is a group of parents, family members, and school staff members. And they have meetings either at the school or on Zoom. And most school sites should have an ELAC committee. It's made up of the parents and teachers, and it gives a voice and gives input to what the needs are of English learner families. And it's an opportunity to really dig deep and learn about the curriculum, or what your children are learning, the finances of the school, and other resources that your children their children's school has to offer. So if you want to learn more about ELAC, you'll want to talk to the principal at your school or your child's teacher about what the date is for their next meeting. Similar to the ELAC is what we call the DLAC, or the District English Language Advisory Committee. The DLAC is just like ELAC, but for the entire school district. So in this case, the DLAC is facilitated by administrators. And in fact, our director, Ms. Villegas, and Mr. Becerra and Ms. Kirkland will also facilitate the DLAC. The DLAC gives you an opportunity to have input into English learner services throughout the whole district. And you'll learn about the programs and opportunities. And there are some dates on the screen for those DLAC meetings, and I'll put those in chat. Any questions about DLAC? Oh, those are in person now too.
Yeah, DLAC's in person. ELAC, you'll have to talk to your site leaders.
It differs.
Yeah. And I also posted the flyer of the district calendar as a link, which you should be able to access. If you can't, let me know.
And there are the dates for the DLAC. I did not put the flyer, but I'm glad you did. Heriberto, Mr. Soto, can you, oh, okay, we'll just do it this way, huh? So another way that you can get information about supporting your child and about what the school and the district offer is by going onto the Twin Rivers website. And so by now, I'm sure you've been on the website, but I just want to note that when you're on the website, you'll notice two important items. One is where the pointer is right now, and that is schools. When you click on the schools button, it'll go through and it'll show your schools, all of the schools. And we have a lot of schools, close to 31 or 32 elementary schools. And I have lost count how many middle and high schools. That's okay. But your child's school will be listed. And I encourage you to look at the school website. I also want you to know that you can go in, Mr. Soto, can you point to where the translation tool is? Sorry, I didn't warn you about that. You can click on language. There you go. Go ahead.
Did we see this? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So when you click on language, you can choose any of these languages, and the entire site will be translated into that language. So it'll give you an opportunity to be able to read about what's happening in a language that you're most familiar with. And then when you go to schools, you can click on schools and you can see all of the different schools. Oh, there you go. Yeah, thank you. I was like, I'm not sure which one of those says schools. And you choose schools, and then you can learn about the information about your child's school. And don't forget Parents Corner. Mr. Soto can talk more about that.
Yes, really quickly, Parent and Family Corner was a website that was developed by our communications department. And in this case, let me see if I could change it back to English. It allows families opportunity to find out more about enrolling at Twin Rivers regarding the student calendar, Chromebooks that are provided to our students, regarding the meals and nutrition services, such as, for example, the holiday meals that are going to be for Thanksgiving, Swan Math, which is a program that has been utilized for TK through 9th grade, and especially graduation requirements, and even how to go about applying for jobs with EdJoin. So this website is a really essential website to find out more about how to learn more about what's going on in the district. So that's a little bit about the Parents and Family Corner.
Thank you. I sprung that on you, sorry. All right. And with that, we are open to any questions that you have. And I know there might have been something in the chat Ms. Reyes had a question. Maybe Mr. Soto can translate that for us. I know we're up on time.
Says here, with my child, I feel that they have learned more at home with classes virtually than now. As far as when it comes to, you know, like for an English learner with pronunciation and with the way that they you know, speak the words. This is a comment that one of our parents had mentioned. That's what the comment says.
Thank you for your comment. This past couple of years has offered learning situations and scenarios that we could not have even imagined. And so learning virtually or by distance learning worked well for some students, some families, and for others, it was a big challenge. We're thankful that we're able to learn together. And whether there's, you know, if there's something that you think that your child needs and would benefit them, we really encourage you to reach out. And we hope that we gave you some tools and some ideas of things that you can talk to your family or your teacher about and your principal. And we just want you to know we're all teachers first and foremost, and we know as teachers how much we appreciated families sharing information and asking questions. So please reach out if you have questions. I'm happy to stay on if, you know, answer any questions. And we just want to thank you so much. We just love having the chance to talk with you.